Thank you very much for staying through to the end. I've got the real diehards in the room now, so hopefully I'm not going to disappoint. It's quite interesting that Scott, when he introduced himself, is from Raleigh, North Carolina, as am I. I'm also based in Raleigh, North Carolina, as you can tell from the accent. So been there about 8.5 years now, thoroughly enjoying that. But what I'm going to go through here is not a sales pitch. I'm not going to go and say how wonderful our products are or anything like that as we go through. What I really want to do is leave the show and the exhibition, which I think has been fantastic. How many people have thought that the show this year was really good? Right, and have actually achieved a lot out of it? Yeah? I think the running of it has been absolutely fantastic. There's been a lot of good exhibitions, a lot of good ideas. And what I want to do is try and show you where we've been, some of the successful projects we've had in both AR and VR, and open that up for discussion. So it's not really about what might be, what the future is. This is actually happening now. These are real proof points that VR and AR is a developing business. Companies are investing in it, and Dell is fully behind our customers to actually implement that. But first off, I was going to go through this, but you're on the third day now. I'm sure you all know the difference between 360 video, VR, and AR, so I'm not going to dwell too much on this. But when you're talking to customers like I do a lot, it's amazing when you work in the industry how many people aren't on the same plane as you are. Everybody's perception of what a technology is inside of their head. So whenever I'm talking to customers, I always make sure that we're always on the same level, we're always talking about the same thing. Sometimes people get confused between 360 video, which I call the gateway, to VR. VR obviously being fully immersive. Augmented reality would be giving me something where I'm looking out into the audience here, and I'll be able to see your names, your interests, and actually direct the conversation in a way that makes it more interesting to you than, obviously the content's interesting already, but I can actually direct it towards a few people and get some interaction. So augmented reality would help there. And then mixed reality when we start creating those objects inside a physical space in a virtual world, so we can all talk around that. So just to make sure we're on the same page there. I also have to do the obligatory graph. Tony Parisi the other day put some numbers up as well from IDC. It's good that we're both using the same numbers. This really shows where VR and AR are going inside of the industry. Why are we even interested in pursuing this inside of enterprise? And the numbers really speak for themselves. Right? AR is really going to start to explode inside of commercial. The compound annual growth rate is predicted to be about 98% year on year. And if you've got a business that's growing at 98% year on year, you'd probably give a bodily part to be part of that growth. And so therefore, we're going to see a lot of penetration of these technologies. VR is growing at the moment. AR is probably slightly behind VR still in terms of growth. But we're starting to see more and more applications where AR becomes real. And there's been some great examples on the show floor if you had a chance to check those out. So what have we actually done to drive VR? You probably know us as making PCs, making workstations, servers, et cetera, So why are we in VR and what are we doing that makes us different to drive the industry? The first one really happened about, 17, 18 months ago, I guess, which was with Jaguar Land Rover. They actually used VR during the design process, which was very interesting. They had their internal and exterior design teams talking to each other and actually modeling the car from the inside. They had to route cables inside of the car, and they had the two teams working together inside of VR to see how they could physically change the shape of the car to make sure they had enough space inside of it. The I-Pace is an electric vehicle. They thought this is a new concept, a new way of going, and really wanted to push the envelope in how do you launch a new vehicle. So they decided to do it in VR. We were lucky enough to be driving the experience. We had 66 people worldwide in a VR experience simultaneously. 10 of those were in London. The rest were actually based in LA. And then through their magic, they then beamed in the engineers via black screen into everybody's headset. And they talked you through the technical characteristics of a car, which would normally be done on a flat PowerPoint presentation. The tech audience absolutely loved it. They lapped it up. The journalists for the motoring trades, they absolutely loved it. They'd never seen anything like it before inside of VR. And the great thing was that while everybody's got their headset on, they had the luxury of being able to wheel the concept vehicle in without being seen, so that when everybody finished their own interaction and experience inside of VR with the car, we can see how one single charge would take you down the coast of California, and it would show you that on planet Earth as you're above it and show the car going down it. It was really quite impressive. Then as everybody took their headsets off, then the lights went up, fanfare of trumpets, and then the concept car was actually in the middle of the room. Right, so it was a really great moment to see people's faces having done that in that type of environment. Now you could say, okay, that's a gimmick. You launch a car, you do it in VR. Success is really, are you going to do it again? Do you think that was a success, that you made it? And the answer is yes, it was. Because later on in the year, it was probably about 8 months after that, they then launched the E-Pace. And again, they used VR as part of the launch. So inside of that launch, you are now inside an aircraft hangar. They got the Guinness World Record for a barrel roll in like a consumer car or whatever you want to call it. And so inside of VR, you're actually seeing the car doing the barrel roll. Right, you were there. And when you took the headset off, again, the car roars in from one side of the aircraft hangar, does a barrel roll in front of you, lands the other side, and everybody can then go and see the car. So again, that just really highlights the success and the emotional connection that VR can actually give you to a product. This is why we're seeing in retail, and they're looking at car showrooms now, can you actually get a buying experience by purchasing a vehicle by using VR? You can involve the whole family, everybody can see what the options are going to look like, you can see what the interior and the exterior are going to look like. It's a great buying experience, and that emotional connection allows you to get an uptick. I was actually in VR World UK last week, and we had a customer engagement there, and we were chatting to various different aspects and various different verticals. And in retail, they are actually seeing VR making that emotional connection, and people are now spending more. They're actually looking at the objects inside of VR. They believe in it more because they can see it, and they're actually getting more upsells. So people are spending more money, they're feeling more comfortable about the purchase, they can see what it's going to look like, and so therefore press the buy button more frequently. And the metrics that they're seeing have far surpassed the metrics that actually got the project kick-started. So we're seeing a great uptick on there. I mean, for instance, I was in a privileged position of buying a car when I was based back in the UK, and I think it was the most nerve-wracking 10 weeks of my life. Right, as I'd actually selected all of the options for the car out of a catalogue. I was looking at it saying, well, that looks okay, that looks a bit ostentatious. I don't want to get laughed at in the street by small children, right, as I go past in this monstrosity of a car. I get laughed at by children in the street today, but that's a different issue. But it really helps you make that emotional connection to a product and really helps inside that commercial experience. The other one that is very near and dear to my heart is healthcare. Right? I've got a little trite soundbite, which is that even if you don't work in healthcare, you care about your health. Right? And these techniques that are happening inside of VR, Dr. Skip Rizzo, who's based out of the University of Southern California, great guy. If you ever meet him, he's so interesting. The work that he's doing in PTSD treatment by using VR. So inside of healthcare, we've got a VR for Good campaign. We're doing things like going and highlighting the plight of polar bears. Remember I mentioned about emotional connection and getting people to think more about their environments. By using VR as that emotive medium, we can actually get people to care about the environment. In the same way, we can actually get them to care about their health. Right? PTSD treatment is about exposure therapy. You can recreate the experience that happened with the trigger points, etc. And they're finding that they can treat and reduce the treatment time and reduce those triggers a lot faster inside of VR for very effective treatment. And so Dr. Skip Rizzo was actually on stage with Michael Dell at our big flagship event about 3-4 weeks ago, being awarded a grant to continue doing that because we believe in that very, very much. The other thing he does is with autism. Right? So helping people with autism train for job interviews, help to make them more autonomous, integrate people into society more, make them more self-sufficient. And again, by training and doing VR interviews with an AI back end, with an avatar, you find that they can train for a hostile interview, a friendly interview, an interview that actually changes as it goes on, and allowing people to really go out there and be more and more self-sufficient. So some great work there being done by Dr. Rizzo. We then also have the traditional media and entertainment. Again, last year, I was lucky enough to be working on the Dunkirk VR experience and also the Spider-Man VR Homecoming experience. Again, great for making emotional connections to films. There's lots of VR pieces. You see quite a few films nowadays are actually investing in VR pieces to get their brand out there, get the awareness out there, and really trying to use this new medium in different ways to get the connection. So, Dunkirk, how many of you have seen Dunkirk? Yeah? So it's based in like 3 parts, land, sea, and air. And inside the VR experience, it gives you a taste of each one. And it actually highlights parts of the story and makes you have that feeling about being there. If you then go and see the film, because you've experienced the VR experience of being underwater, being in the air, being on the beach when the planes are coming, it really makes you think when you watch the film as well, because you've got more of a connection to it. And that's what they're using inside of these VR pieces to really help people understand more of the medium and the story that they're trying to convey. So moving on to the AR side of things, what have we done inside of AR? AR, as we've seen, is becoming quite huge, especially in enterprise. Reasons for that are we can now do more things, we can help people more inside of AR, we can train people, we can do hands-on learning and guided assistance, etc. But again, the healthcare aspects are the ones that are really starting to ignite the AR industry. We can start taking CAT scans, MRI scans, and put them into an AR context so we can actually talk people through them. We can actually train surgeons to operate on not a tumour, but the tumour. So you can actually get people practicing on the data that you've got. So by the time the operation actually physically takes place, the surgeon's actually practiced several times to work out what the complications could be depending on which incision goes where. I'm not a medic, I'm just using these terms frivolously, but it really helps with the operation because at the end of the day we want a successful outcome. Okay, so by using that really great data we can use. The other thing we can do with AR is because we can actually see through the data. Imagine if you're a doctor and you've got a patient coming into the room. You can actually both go into AR and you can both look at the data of the patient and you'll be able to talk them through the news or the issues, problems, or good news, whatever it happens to be, through that and still be able to maintain eye contact. So you'll be able to see the physical reaction of the patient. You'll be able to see if they're upset, whether they're elated or whatever, and be able to change your mood accordingly as you talk through the same data together. The other one is we work with the City of LA. Just as a matter of point, we make our own headset in the VR world in the consumer space, the Dell Visor, but we actually partner with the likes of Meta and Daiquiri and Microsoft with the HoloLens for the AR implementations. And the City of LA we work with Daiquiri on. And this was an interesting one because the statistic that's there is that this time next year, 50% of the workforce of the City of LA is eligible for retirement. Right? Now that's quite scary because you've now got the possibility of a huge exodus of trained labour, of skills going out there that you haven't actually replaced. So how are you actually going to train new people to come into the organisation to do those jobs that are going to be leaving? And we're finding that with AR, with assisted learning, this is a great way of transferring skills. There's the old saying that you learn a small amount by listening, you learn a bit more by reading, and then by experiencing, you actually retain a lot more of the information that you're being taught. So again, we're seeing this in education, schools, and exploring that about people learning in different ways. In much the same way, the aging workforce problem is a challenge which we can help to solve by using AR. We can have the new greenhorn, or whatever you want to call them, going out with AR spectacles on, and then actually being talked through the process, to have their vision actually augmented, to be listening to the veteran who's actually sitting in an office, actually guiding them through the process from the comfort of an office while they're out on the road. Right, this will allow that assisted learning as you go through. It's a step up, as I like to call it, from the YouTube video. So how many of you have actually taken apart an object like a TV, washing machine, computer, and then had next to you the YouTube video? Yeah? Go on, don't be shy. I know most of you have. Yeah, there we go. Right? So yeah, it's an advance of that. We've now got a YouTube video on our face. We can call it up, we can see through it, we can actually have that. But not only that, we've got an interactive one with a live person at the other end that can be guiding us through that fixing. So again, you're going to have a lot better success rate, shall we say, with that training. There was a statistic I read on one of the stands as I was going past, and it was, the job can be reduced by about 16% in terms of time to operate by using AR. So again, you've now got savings in time as well through assisted training with somebody wearing an AR headset, and that becomes real savings to the corporation. The last one I want to finish on, before I let you go to your weekends and whatever else, is that we did some work with Meta, we did some work with Nike and Ultra Haptics as well. And what you're about to see is constructed under marketing license. I'll be completely upfront and honest about that. But all of the technology you see in here actually exists in a lab. It just doesn't look as pretty as it does inside of this video. But all of this technology works today and works together, and we're starting to build on that to where we see design going in the future. Right, we can see that there's a far better way to interface with other people, with objects, with design, and this video hopefully will give you a little taster as to what we think the future will be.
It starts with a question.
Load women size 8.
Followed by an idea on how to make things simpler, better, or more beautiful.
Approximate shape from sketches.
But it's not just what it looks like.
Load cross-terrain sequence.
It's how it works. Which means trying. And failing. And trying again. To be a designer means not being bound by the limits of your tools, but instead,
Expand box.
being inspired by them.
Show me the upper.
So that you can focus on what only you can do. Being creative. Being curious. And being critical. Exploring the union between function and form. Until suddenly you know.
Optimize cushion pattern for terrain.
That's it.
And when you're ready to share your work, make sure everyone can see that the world is a little simpler, better, and more beautiful.
And with that, thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Safe journey home, and everybody have a great weekend.